Hi, many manufacturers use different techniques to prevent air bubbles in epoxy, and there is a lot of different information on the internet. However, in this video, we will explain in detail which applications can be used under which conditions and what results they provide. Although some epoxy manufacturers add air bubble eliminators into the epoxy, you may not be able to eliminate all air bubbles depending on the conditions. Additionally, we do not recommend epoxies that contain air bubble eliminators in order to achieve the highest quality product. We have included this topic in detail in our video on how to choose the best epoxy. All manufacturers, whether experienced or inexperienced in epoxy production, think that they can remove air bubbles with blowtorches, lighters, and similar fire equipment. However, this application only removes air bubbles in the top layer of epoxy. It is not possible to eliminate deeper air bubbles with this application. The first method to professionally eliminate air bubbles is to vacuum after the epoxy mixture is prepared. Since this application is performed before pouring the mixed epoxy, it will have no effect on the air bubbles that form after the epoxy is poured onto the application area. Apart from this, since the vacuum machine is an equipment used in more professional productions, it may not be possible to find it in smaller manufacturers or manufacturers with more limited production possibilities. Now, let's talk about the air bubble removal technique that you can easily use in your production. All you need for this is a heat gun. The process of removing air bubbles using a heat gun requires some care and a few important pieces of information. After pouring the epoxy into the application area, wait for 15 to 25 minutes without any intervention. We do this to eliminate air bubbles that will disappear without requiring any intervention. However, any remaining air bubbles after your waiting period must be removed by you. At this stage, you can turn the heat gun to the strong setting and start applying it to the areas where there are air bubbles, from a distance of approximately 5 to 10 centimeters. The most important point at this stage is to avoid applying the product while staying fixed in one area. Applying too much heat gun to a single area will cause the epoxy to heat up, accelerate the reaction that occurs during the hardening process, and deteriorate the quality of your casting. You need to do this process patiently and spreading it over time. You may not be able to remove all air bubbles in the first application. In this case, wait for 15 to 25 minutes without taking any action. And then repeat the heat gun application. The process of removing air bubbles with a heat gun and the intensity of this process is a process that you should determine according to the type of epoxy you use. You need to be very careful and patient when doing this process for epoxies with high hardener levels that freezes in 24 hours or less. In addition, we recommend that the environment where you are casting is below 22 degrees. If your casting environment is above 22 degrees Celsius or you are using fast-setting epoxies, heat gun application should be done by much more experienced manufacturers. After all air bubbles remaining under the surface have been eliminated with the heat gun application, you can perform a short and quick application with a torch or similar flame equipment, if necessary, for any air bubbles that might remain on the surface. A torch or similar flame equipment should be used by quickly moving the flame across the surface without applying it to a fixed area, ensuring that only the tip of the flame comes in contact with the surface. Why is this important? If you need to pour multiple layers, micro air bubbles that remain on the surface of the first layer and are harder to see may stay at the junction of the first and second layers, potentially affecting the visual quality of the product. Whether you are a large or small product manufacturer, one of the most important factors that determine the quality of the product you produce is your ability to cast bubble-free, glass-clear casting. Videos where we introduce the highest quality epoxy brands and their epoxy types are available in the subscriber-only section of our Instagram page. Stay tuned to Odywood YouTube channel so you don't miss the training videos that will enable you to do professional epoxy production with little known details.